Hey friends. So today it's kind of cool because being that I love watching horror movies, and we got to watch a really special one not too long ago. I'm talking to the director and one of the stars of Sting, which comes out pretty soon. Kiah Roache-Turner, I'm sorry, and then
Uh-huh.
Alyla Browne. Um, Really quick, growing up, like in the early '80s, I remember we used to watch like Piranha, and then there was Ben, and I remember one that I saw called Venom that like freaked me out for a while because it was just like this spider, this snake crawling around through like vents and like killing the kidnappers.
Hmm.
Watching this movie really took me back to that, to like my childhood of seeing those movies like that, and it had me on my edge of my seat because I didn't know what was going to happen next, and I love that feeling because it seems like nowadays a lot of horror movies you kind of predict and already know what's going, but this one I
Yeah.
just was like, I was like, okay, wait, no, don't go there, do this, and I really loved seeing this. So being this that it's one spider in one building, was there when you were figuring out the story or writing it out, did you ever like think about doing like, was it always a plan of just one spider, or was it like a creature feature, like a whole bunch of spiders, and then but you just toned it down to that one building?
No, I wanted to specifically template it to be single location, one family, and one creature. Like I wanted to try and simplify my narrative process. Like in all my previous films, it's kind of they're all over the shop, man. They're just like these intense coffee fueled nightmares, and there's just like 50 ideas going on in every scene, and I wanted to really like minimize that. So I went with a classic template. Um, and I found like simplifying it down to like um, that level allowed me to be very imaginative, but always wrapping it around like a central spine that is pretty minimalist. But yeah, I mean, I grew up with those films too. I grew up watching like Poltergeist and Evil Dead 2 and, like Jaws and all that stuff. And the one thing about those great 80s, even Goonies or like Critters or stuff like that, is that, like, it's just constant every scene. Like there's a new thing going on, you know what I mean? And I really like that kind of filmmaking where like it's like a comedian, like it's like every 15 seconds you need to say a funny thing, and like every 15 minutes you need to have an amazing thing occur in the film. And so I always like that kind of constantly imaginative, always twisty turny, following a standard template, but like also making sure that the audience isn't always on solid ground so that they can always second guess what it is that you're going to do. There should always be surprises across the narrative, So yeah, that's what I try to do.
Yeah, and it came out. It came out. It was really great with that. Alyla, there is like for any kid, like if you see a spider on the floor, some people freak out or just run away from it. But for your character, it was just like this interesting thing to like, oh, let me keep this as a pet. But for my question for you was like, how did you relate to Charlotte? And then also like, in real life, would is that something that you would do? Like if you would just see a spider laying around somewhere, or would you just like walk away from it?
I actually would do that myself because I like spiders and I've kept little jumping spiders before, but it wasn't eating. I caught flies and put it into the enclosure, but it wasn't eating, and its abdomen was like kind of shrinking slightly, which means it needs more food. And I had to release it. But one day I hope to have a little jumping spider because they're adorable. And I guess I relate to Charlotte in ways that we both like spiders, but also we're both just teenage girls and we both get grumpy sometimes, but we can also be nice. Charlotte's pretty grumpy, but then she's kind of very lonely at the same time. So this kind of all brings them together at the end, which is very good writing on Kia's part.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I thought Alyla was pretty similar. I mean, at the end of the day, uh, like Charlotte is a scrappy kid who can actually save her family from a giant spider at the end of the day. And, Alyla is a girl who grew up on the farm and she can do all her own stunts and she can dance, she can do all this stuff, and she's got like a flying fox that her dad built on her farm, and like she does constant stunts all the time, and she likes spiders. Like, I mean, what 12, 13-year-old girl actually likes spiders? This one does. So yeah, I mean, and she can draw. And like she writes and stuff too. Like she's very creative, and it was just like, oh my god, like this girl is the character. Like it was, I literally, I've just been telling everybody, it's like I didn't have to direct at all. All I had to do was say action and cut, and you know, it was the easiest directing experience I've ever had with an actor. I was very lucky.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Okay, one question I wonder is like how much of the spider was like practical, like on set, or was it all just CGI?
Originally, I just wanted it to mostly be the puppet because we had this amazing puppet built by Richard Taylor, you know, who runs the Weta Workshop over in New Zealand and is a massive hero of mine. So he built this giant puppet spider, and in my mind, originally, I was thinking like most of it should be the puppet. Um, but it actually ended up kind of being 50-50. Like originally my idea was to almost never show the little version of Sting, you know, and hide it behind things and whatnot. But we actually ended up, Cumulus, the company that created the photorealistic digital spider, actually created such a good creature that we ended up showing it a lot more. So, you know, when the spider's small, it's a fully digital creation. And then when it's big, it's, I would say, 90% Weta puppet, and then just only when it's a wide shot and you've got the thing crawling around on the ceilings and on the walls and whatnot, that's when it's digital. So I think it ended up being like 50-50 in the end. Yeah.
And then for you, for working with it, it's like knowing that it's sometimes it's going to be there and sometimes it's not going to be there. Like, how hard was it for you to act with that, or even like to adjust to that? Like knowing that one minute you're going to see the real one, and then they might not be real the next. Like,
Yeah, the thing is that even though Kiah ended up doing like more 50-50, most of the scenes where I actually had to look at the spider react, the spider was there. And it might have been, I actually haven't seen the film because I'm waiting for the screening, but it might have been animated even though it was there on set too. I guess that's more a question for Kiah, but I feel like most of the times I had to react, I was always reacting to something, and I don't really remember a time that I was reacting to the big spider where it wasn't there. For the mini spider, when I was looking in the jar, there wasn't anything in the jar, but I could still be amazed by a jar. I could still be excited by the jar and think it's really cool.
and then
Well,
Kia,
that was a big thing for my approach too. Like, to me, horror is a tactile medium. Like, if it's real, the audience knows it's real. I find most of the time, every now and again, I'm proved wrong, but like 80-90% of the time, digital just isn't as scary as an actual thing that's there, that's interacting with the shadows and interacting with the actors and interacting with the condensation and rain or whatnot, or moving props around itself. You know, these are the things that like just rip away the uncanny valley effect. And so when you've got an actor who's reacting to a creature that's actually clawing at it and hissing and screeching, and you know, venom is flying off the mandibles and whatnot, it's just, you get a better reaction and a more specific geographical reaction to something that's in front of them, rather than me just shoving a tennis ball at their face and going, it's an alien, scream louder. You know, that doesn't work.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And then, what was the plan for it to always be a spider, or were there like different insects that you went through before you finalized? Like, let's do
Like
this.
an audition process. I'm going, okay, bring in the grasshopper. No, no. Okay, let's try the spider. No, no, no. It was always a spider, man. I'm incredibly arachnophobic. Spiders have always been the thing that has terrified me more than anything. And like, I think 5 years ago, I sat down to try and think of the scariest creature. Like, I wanted to do just a specific creature feature. I'm like, I want to like, I just want to make a really simple horror film that is, you know, single location, single monster. And what's the scariest monster? And to me, there's nothing scarier than a giant spider the size of a jaguar that drags you into air conditioning ducts and eats you. To me, that's the most horrifying thing I could think of. And I just wrote the script based on that. It was always a spider, always.
Nice, nice. And then for you, would oh, I just lost my train of thought. And it's funny that we have the Spider-Man in the background too, with all our
Yeah.
talk of spiders.
I was bitten by a spider when I was 2 or 3, my mother tells me, which is probably where the arachnophobia came from. So I was bitten by a black spider when I was very, very young, but I did not get superpowers. All I got was a fear of the bloody things. And that's why we're talking today.
Yes, exactly. And then today with the eclipse too, nobody else got superpowers, or at least we don't know yet. Um, for
Maybe
you,
in the sequel.
there we go. That's what I kind of wanted to come to. For you, Alyla, we know that your character like wrote like a comic book that your father or your stepfather drew out and everything. So now that this, I guess predicting or hoping, manifesting, if there is a sequel, would we see your character use this story as like her basis for her next comic book? What would you think about that?
That's a good idea. I think that you just win the end, but you have to talk to Kiah about it.
I've already written the treatment for the sequel, and like a lot of the stuff that we set up in the first film comes to play in the sequel. So yeah, like all of the things that Charlotte learned
Uh-huh.
about fighting giant spiders comes very much into play in the sequel. But yeah, I can't tell you too much about it, but it'll be super fun, that's for sure.
Definitely.
My big analogy is that if Sting is alien, then Sting 2 will be aliens, like tonally, you know?
Nice, nice. And then I don't want to give away too much, but I do like the fact that we did see, like, obviously there was multiple, I guess you could say eggs or meteors landing everywhere. And then like movies like Battle Los Angeles, like where we only know one part of the story, it'll be kind of cool to see what happened where other ones landed. Um, but I want to say thank you both for, or unless you have like a last minute thought.
But then I
No,
would be
no, yeah. Yeah, well, that's a good point, Alyla.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
because
erase that then.
we did actually go down that route of going, oh, we could, what happens over in Paris and what happens over in Thingo, and I very quickly realized that like I want to kind of continue the Charlotte character. Like to me, it would be interesting to see Charlotte having gone through the trauma of what she went through in the first one and then come and revisit her when she's 16 17 years old and still dealing with the trauma, but then has to be called back in. That's the template that was set up in Aliens. You've got this
Yeah,
traumatized Sigourney Weaver forced to go back to the River Kwai to re-experience this
nice.
trauma and deal with it, and in the end she's running around with a flamethrower looking tough, and I'm like, yeah, man, that's the trajectory I'm interested in. That's the story I want to tell. So yeah,
That would be awesome to see Charlotte out there with the flamethrower, taking
100%. Yeah,
taking
that's the
taking
poster
out a
right
den of
there. Yeah,
spiders. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Well, thank you both very much for your time. Friends, Sting is coming out soon. I highly recommend watching this. Even if you're arachnophobic, I think you'll have a great time. Thank you very much for your time today, and much success with the movie. Bye.
See you later.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you.